Fastcut, baby! What a delivery! All the way from Canada. What's up, guys? Jordan from Bennett's Customs. We are back on a very exciting episode. As you can see, I'm standing in the middle of the Fastcut CNC that you guys saw, where Carl and I did a road trip in the ramp truck, went all the way into the interior of British Columbia, and I got to go and meet Russ, the owner of the company, and all the amazing staff that works for him. And basically I got to see how these CNC tables are manufactured, designed, put together, tested. I actually got to use this tables, which was really, really cool. They kind of have a cutting surface that they were able to put in it, and I was able to go out there and actually cut a few things out. And then fast forward almost probably 9-10 months later, this has finally arrived. Now I'm standing in an empty void that we need to fill, and that is going to be the whole cutting surface. So it's going to have all the plates, the big V, the big ventilation setup that we're going to create, and it's basically going to house the entire table that will then slide inside this frame, we'll call it. Once that's done, then when that lovely plasma setup arrives in the box, we can open that up, we can hook everything up, get the computer set up, the program's going, and we can start to finally use this thing. And I have so many ideas that I've literally dreamt for I don't know how many years about it. So we're gonna be actually welding this entire cutting surface table utilizing a brand new and new to us Arccaptain 205 Pro MIG welder, which I'm very excited to both try, show you guys whether or not, you know, it's gonna pass the test. It's really cool, some of the features that this has. It's kind of like a whoa, light bulb moment. So I'm excited to show you that throughout the video. So let's get straight into it. All right, so until this kind of makes sense, hopefully I can overlay a bit of the drawing or rendering that we are working off of in order to create this. But we basically have an initial frame. We have a few legs. Over here, we have kind of a pre-bent fixture that is gonna be kind of the whole table. And then what sits in here is this setup here. So this will actually have a bunch of holes in it, and then there would be sort of an extraction fan on one end. So that's what's creating that kind of funnel. So, you know, the cutting surface is gonna be up here. This goes under our little slats, and then obviously all the, you know, kind of the stuff that you don't want to be breathing in gets sucked through and then shot out. We do want to make sure that this is square and it is level, because that's going to dictate how our sheets are going to sit on there and the control for where our torch for the plasma is going to go. I don't want to have any variance in there, so we are going to try our best to make it as square and as level as possible. Luckily, because we are MIG welding, you guys know that if you are TIG welding, the metals have to be very, very clean. So with MIG welding, we can still burn through this kind of, this etch prime, I'll call it, or the prime that, you know, it's kind of a weld through primer. So it's obviously sealed. It is a pain in the ass to get off too, which is a good thing, because it's obviously nice, clean, beautiful metal underneath it. So we are going to start to create the first portion of this cutting surface. I'm just going to go around and bevel our ends. And by beveling, I mean I'm just going to kind of take about a 45-degree cut. That is just going to give us a better weld. It's going to be able to give us a little bit more penetration. You know, like there's different brands out there for CNCs. They all have their bonuses, their pros and their cons. Personally, I haven't found any cons yet with this setup. With Fastcut, it is just like a family run business. And the cool thing is that they sort of manufacture and build everything in-house, which is really neat. From all their electronics, their computer stuff, the actual table, everything gets tested, everything gets used before it even goes out the door. So they're really good about making sure that the quality control is perfect, which is a huge bonus, I think, when anyone is going to be making a purchase like that, to be able to buy a CNC setup. So, and I'm by no means, just kind of going out there going like, they're the best in the world. They're really, really good people. They're kind of, from home, which is great. I love supporting a Canadian company. And just the amount of positive feedback that I've heard from so many people that use this table, it was an absolute no-brainer to be able to reach out to Russ and, make this happen. So it's a really cool setup, and it's going to be a really fun, long-lasting relationship, and I just cannot wait to actually really dig in to use this. So I'm babbling on, but I'm very excited about this, and it's not like putting on a show for YouTube. You guys know that are our core followers. I don't like to do that at all, nor will I ever kind of sell out to that. But I can truly be excited about something, and this really is. This table is going to create some really neat opportunities to make some of those crazy artistry things that float around in my head a reality. So it's a no-brainer. All right, so before we get started, I just want to cover a few basic things with this welder before we actually start making this downdraft table. This is, again, the MIG205 Pro. It is designed and manufactured by Arccaptain, and they kind of reached out to us to say, hey, would you guys want to try one of our welders? And I was obviously stoked for the idea to kind of trial it and see what we thought of it. Right out of the box, obviously, we're not going to do like a massive full, this video is not intended for a full review on this. It's just, I want to show you me actually using it in what we'd be doing in the daily, routine of Bennett's Customs anyways. But right off the bat, a couple of key components that I really like. It is a 120, 240 volt. It's obviously from the States. It's 650 bucks, I believe. It's on sale right now. That's US. So Australian, that's almost a bit over 900 bucks, which is really good for a very good entry level and that kind of experience level welder. I mean, it's 205 amps. And if you run that at that 240 volts, that off the top of my head, I'm remembering these things because I made notes. It does like a 60% duty cycle at 205 amps. So that's very impressive. Another couple of key, obviously, features is it does kind of have like a lift TIG setup, so you can run it as that. It has, you can get the stick welder out and you can obviously use that. It has a really kind of thick, robust sort of stinger for it too, which I'm kind of amped on, and I still do a lot of stick welding. The settings that it has are really cool compared to my sort of old ancient one that it's just, 2 dials and there's no digital display at all. It is kind of neat to see that. It does have your sync setup. So your sync would be basically just for your beginner setup where it would manually change your amperage for your wire speed. And that's directly based on kind of what you're welding. So, it kind of helps for the guys who just want to start to kind of learn how to use it right away. Whereas you can take that setting off and you can definitely dial it in a lot more. There's you can really go through this whole welder, and there's probably going to be multiple videos where I'll really get deep into, your burn back stuff, the shielding set where you can have pre and post flow, which is really cool. You can run an aluminum spool off of it, and it actually does have a graphite sheath for inside. So if you wanted to just put a roll of aluminum wire through here, you can just do that with putting that sheath in there, and you can basically start to weld aluminum, which is amazing. So that's a huge, advantage. It still can run a spool gun, which is cool too. It's got your wire feed choices, your gas. It's got 2T and 4T. So for you guys that aren't really familiar with that, 2T is basically on the trigger, off the trigger. on the trigger, off the trigger. So it's, you'd be weld on or weld off, whereas 4T is kind of trigger on, it starts to weld, trigger again, turns it off. So for you guys that would be, you know, welding something astronomically long for some odd reason, you could click it into 4T, you could press the trigger, you could kind of get a bit more comfortable with your finger if you were getting little finger cramps from hitting the trigger too much. But another cool option feature that it has, and then you can kind of just go through, there's so many different parameters that this thing can do. I've kind of just briefly gone over them just to set up the machine so that we can use it. Another one that's really neat before we start welding, this has like eye control, and eye control is an app that you can actually have on your phone. I know, sounds crazy, using an app with a welder kind of doesn't make sense, but it's intended for those times where, like, if say you're under a car and you're all wrapped up, which you guys have seen me do multiple times. I was doing that while we were on the coupe. I was stuck in there trying to weld stuff. Well, if you got your phone on you and you went to weld and you went, oh no, the wire speed's too much, or the amperage is too much or too low, you can actually pull out your phone and do it on there, and it will directly speak through Bluetooth to the machine and it will adjust it. Pretty crazy. Haven't downloaded the app yet. Definitely gonna try it, but it's just kind of one of those cool little features that this does have. But it is overall, comes with kind of everything you need in order to start MIG welding, stick welding, or lift TIG, which is really cool. And it works with aluminum, which is great. So another really big feature, and Ben's gonna have to come in to show you this. I just noticed this today, and it is a game changer. For every other welder company out there, you should 100% supply this. Kudos to Arccaptain for thinking of us. There is a light in here. There's a tiny little LED light that shines down on where you would set up your spool and run it in through into your whip. This is crazy because in so many conditions where you have like low light, which is averagely, you know, happens a lot of the time, it's pretty amazing to have that little light and be shining down on something before you're welding. So, you know, it just helps you set everything up when you go to put your spool of wire in there, whatever you're running, whether it's 023, 030, 035, 040, which is pretty crazy. I've never actually done 040, but you know, it's got the capabilities of being able to do it. It also comes with all of your drive little wheels that carry your wire through, and it does have them for the aluminum as well. So it's a pretty cool machine straight out of the box. And the one thing that I do like about it is it is very slim and super small. So it's only about a foot tall, and you know, kind of size wise, I think it's about 8 inches wide. So, you know, if you had needed like transporting this thing, like it's really light. So you can just basically grab this thing on the fly if you're doing, you know, work site welding or something like that. It is a primo welder for that setup. So it is just really nice having that sort of robust, you know, it's robust, but still small. It's like, you know, one of those gnarly little dogs that are strong and scary, but they're also tiny little ankle biters. But anyways, I'm gonna go through different features while we're actually welding, but I just wanted to give you sort of a brief overview of what we are using and what we're gonna be using to weld this whole setup up. So let's get straight into it. It's got a nice spring in there. So when it grabs to something, it doesn't necessarily wanna get pulled off too hard, which is cool. Sometimes they come with a real weak spring on them, and they don't like to connect to stuff. But what I am gonna do, just to kind of set it in while I'm doing, I will kind of do different trials, different style welding, just to see kind of how it works. But I do have 1/4 inch by 1.25 inch flat bar here that I just tacked together, giving us a little inside joint and a outside joint. And I just want to try a few different welds with it. Have it on the sync setting. So this setting is basically just going to allow us to start going. Whether or not it's going to work or we have to slightly adjust it, we may have to, but let's just give it a try. Okay, so looking at that now, obviously we can tell we can go way hotter, so we can definitely turn up the volts. And this gives you, I think this gives you a plus or minus of 3 volts. So we are going to take it out of the sync setting. I'm going to crank this up to 18 volts. Maybe let's try 19 right in between, and we'll try that. And I'm going to do a different style weld now too. Whoop. So that's not too bad. We got 18 volts or 19 volts into that. I might just jump it up a little bit more and see what we can do. And I'm going to bump the wire speed up a little bit too. I'd like to have that guy I'd like to have the wire speed a little bit different set up, but let's just try that. Definitely better, looks nice. I could probably actually turn the gas up just a little bit. 20 CFH. Yeah, so let's try that and see. That's better. So that's given us a nice, clean weld. It's got good penetration. Could even just bump up the voltage a little bit. Wire speed's okay. I guess, like, you know, for guys, there'd be so many good MIG welding tutorials out there, and guys that can lay some like insane welds. Like I see guys on like quite a few YouTube channels and Instagrams that can seriously, they have MIG welding dialed so perfectly, especially when they're building like frames and chassis, and I see like these amazing C-notches that they're doing to, you know, like either it's like for a 4-wheel drive, building like a Baja truck, or if they're building like a mini truck and they're trying to lower it on the ground and run airbags, their like outside corner joints are absolutely perfect. Like you can't fault them. They're so cool. So it'll be fun to kind of dial this in and really get the feel for it. I'm just gonna try running a little bit different setting. So just a slightly different style. This one, you kind of have your lowercase e's, or sometimes I even go kind of like that where it's kind of flat. And this one is just sort of like a whipping back going through like that. So different styles, different techniques, everybody has them. Kind of ready to start tacking this puppy in. So what I want to do is tack this inside structure first, get everything square. Then we will try and maybe slide this, if we can, maybe corner to corner, utilizing the whole part of the table. Then we can get our end pieces in, get those tacked in, flip this sucker over, do the same, and then we can kind of get it all loosely assembled before we do our final weld. Okay, so we got the table laid out on top of the fab table. And I did a couple inside already. And I actually did like vertical downs, which a lot of you guys are probably gonna frown upon, but I've just always done it. And it's like, I don't know, one time it's funny because the first person I think of when it comes to vertical downs is Carl, and he does it all the time. And I've kind of always done it as well. And there is like a little bit of a technique to doing them, but I've never really had an issue with them. But, you know, I'm sure in the comments we'll hear a couple, but for this process and what we're building, that's just gonna be a standalone table. It is completely fine. Whip could be longer. Wouldn't mind a longer whip. This is a 10-foot one, maybe like 15 feet. That'd be kind of cool. That's my first complaint. And it's not even really that big of a complaint. It's better. Another, thinking about this welder while I'm welding, another really cool feature that this has is it's got a spot weld feature. So if you were, you know, creating like in the Hemi Coupe where I did all those spot welds on the transmission tunnel and that sort of blister for the firewall, you could set it up where you could set it up for your thin sheet metal, whether you're gonna run 030 or 023 wire. And then you can actually set it up. So each one of those spot welds, you just pull the trigger and it'll spot weld until it's finished. And that way you're gonna get a very consistent spot weld all the way around. Same heat, same wire speed, same amount of time per one. So each one should look the same. So if you're trying to, you know, it obviously just helps with ease. You just pull the trigger until it stops and you know you're done. But also if you're trying to leave them or wanted them as a feature, they're obviously gonna look a lot nicer. So just another kind of thing, you know, food for thought. It is kind of a cool little feature that Arccaptain has. I'm definitely pumped. I speak about Carl a lot, but it's because he's one of my best mates and I highly respect him as a person and in the trade. And it's so cool seeing all the stuff that he creates on the Fastcut, on the CNC, and just how dialed in he's got it. Him and Elio especially, they both do. And it's just really cool. Like, I don't know, I just feel like this is we're basically making a window that's just into this whole other realm of design and fabrication. And I'm really excited about it. I'm kind of speaking out loud here, but I just can't get enough of the ideas that could endlessly be coming out of here. And also like just products that we could build and make on this table that we could like show you guys. And quick and easy. They could probably, voltage could be turned down a little bit and the wire speed when you're doing a kind of an outside joint close to that wall, but it just burns it in. What I think I'm gonna do is start to weld our tops up, and then we can kind of flush those off. And then what I might do is actually weld our legs on, get them all square to where we want, and then essentially we could lift this whole system off the fab table onto the ground, and then we can get our slat set up where the little ribs that are actually supplied with your CNC, and I'll show you those in a second. And then we can, you know, kind of keep going with this part of it, and then we'll get into the actual setup for the cage and the downdraft system that they've designed. So when you go and like whenever you're trying to get something like square, like I'm trying to get these legs square, obviously you want to reference everything to your table or your material that you're using. So I got it 90 degrees, and then you can like tack on the side. So if I know it's got to go out, I'm going to tack on that side so that you can kind of like pull it that way. So it'll still be tacked, but it's still movable. So if you know it's got to go that way and you tack on this side, well then the heat's going to be, obviously want to pull it back naturally, and then you're not going to have any kind of room in order to move it that way. So just be sort of mindful when you're setting your stuff up that you'll know which way you got to go and which way it'll pull and where you can put your tacks. So little top kind of tip, you know, that might benefit some people while building their nice dining room table for their wife or their husband. So that's got to go that way anyway. So just stab this back corner. $90 degrees, so it's pulled it. All right, so frame is off the fab table. It is on the ground. Legs are welded on. They're nice and true and straight. This is our other piece. I just notched the corners out as the plans show. And this is gonna actually go inside here. So this is kind of the downdraft part of the table. So I'm gonna try and get this up into there, and then we're just gonna tack it around the edges. And then once that's done, we'll try and lift this whole thing right side over, and then we'll get the cutting slats, kind of the three main ones set up. And then you'll initially, once that's done, you're gonna really see kind of what we're trying to create here. All right, so we got our sides uprights on, and these are what are gonna hold all of our slats for the cutting table itself. And these are all offset, and there's a reason for that, so I will show you in a second. So I'm just going to get this guy welded in. Overall, I've definitely used the welder a lot. And it is kind of passing all the tests. There's a fair bit of spatter coming off of it. I don't know if it's definitely not the welder itself, it's just the gas setup. So I need to play around with that. Also, I do love using a little bit of that anti-spatter. It does kind of it does work really well. So, you know, if you are kind of questioning whether or not to use it, I personally like to use it. I'm not sure if other people, if they're, you know, have an issue against it, but I think it works really well. That is somewhat tweaked. I had this one laying on and I think I sat on it. So I just want to try and get that little ooh, too much. Perfect. That one's good down there. We are really making headway on this. I'm pretty pumped. If any of you guys were considering purchasing this, which I think it should be an absolute no doubt if you you know, if you were in the market for one, this cutting table is all done. So you basically will buy the actual table itself, the program, everything, the cutting table. So it comes as like a package. So you don't have to worry about doing this. Unless you want to, there is that option. I took the option because I wanted to challenge myself. And I like building stuff. And as much as I love working with sheet metal, I do really like welding more heavier stuff, you know, thicker walled, more bigger, you know, kind of things. From when I used to build four-wheel drive trucks, that was so much fun. And you know, there's kind of a lot of really cool things that you can do, and it's just heavier material and big welds, and I don't know. But there'll be a bit of that coming up in the future with the little 1966 International Travelall, where we'll be doing a full 1-ton diff swap, Cummins swap eventually. It's going to be the family tow rig, but there'll be some big heavy duty welding in that, which will be really cool. And if you are interested in welding thinner sheet metal, make sure you click the link below, jump over, put your name on the wait list, and spots are limited, but it is for the welding masterclass that we want to bring out. So make sure you put your email on that list before somebody else does, because spots are very limited. All right, so got all the slats in, and you kind of now understand the offset of all those little cuts that they supply, so that each bit that you put in has a little bit of a bow in it, and that just kind of helps everything sit a little bit sturdier. But it looks really cool. There was a little bit of surface rust because when we got that stuff cut, unfortunately, it sat out for one day in the rain and got a lot of surface rust on it. So I was actually able to put a little bit of rust converter through one of our old paint guns and just put real low pressure and just kind of dusted it on. And as you can see, it's actually applied a coating on it, which is really cool. So in the beginning of the video, I had mentioned I was thinking about painting this thing, but I don't really see the benefit in painting it. Also, I think if there's something on there and we paint it, it's just one of those, another fume that is added to it anyway. So probably not the best thing. The blue around the outside, you're not even gonna see because it'll literally, this whole thing sits within that table. But very versatile little setup. I've just put this in just to test it. So this isn't finalized yet. We're just trying to figure out a depth and kind of where it's gonna go against the wall. And then there's these little two flanges there with this little piece. And that way I can just put a few rivets through there to hold it in. But it'll sit something like that. Hopefully this will match the hole that's already in there. And I will build just a little steel plate that will encompass kind of this bit. And then we'll drill a series of holes through here that will pull. You know, once that fan, I don't know kind of what fan we're going to use. Actually, for everyone that's sort of tuning in, maybe Australia, because it would be a little bit easier. But if any of you guys suggest a really good kind of industrial style fan that could either sit kind of on the outside or, you know, has those outside dimensions of 12 inches or 300 mil, let us know in the comments, because it would be great to know what you guys think. I still think I'd like to put it through maybe one filter. I can get kind of a paint filter that could work really well, just to kind of pull a little bit of the fumes out. But other than that, this is kind of called done. It is really nice and flat. I was kind of a little bit worried, just making sure there's tons of welding on this thing. So even though it is super thick walled and everything's kind of on edge, it's still, there's still room for everything to kind of move. So you just want to take your time and kind of bounce around, let stuff cool down. But yeah, was able to get it all nice. We just put the degree finder on it. It's sitting at 0.1 degree this way, but it's actually the floor, so which is a bonus. But everything else is zeroed out, which is awesome. So we're gonna get this in a future video, obviously that over top of it, where we're gonna have it, and then we're gonna see where everything sits. And then hopefully it'll be nice and level. We'll get the plasma set up, all the computer software set up. We're gonna make kind of a nice little area to have the desktop and everything like that. But yeah, this has been exciting. Very simple kind of setup, but still really fun. Also kind of cool to try out that new welder. Definitely gave it a good run. And yeah, super pleased with how it comes out. I'm kind of excited to get into those little nitty gritty details on it, and maybe, kind of see about those pre and post flows and get it kind of really dialed in to see what it's, capable of. So yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys, enjoyed that. It's going to be super exciting getting it going. I think we've all, you and us have been very excited and eager to finally see it kind of, in the shop and ready to go. And for a lot of you that have been asking about this guy here, I have been cranking on this lately, and I have got so much done that we are saving for another video. But hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow, which will be in the future, will be first startup. So in the next video on the radial flyer, we will hopefully have first startup, whether it does what it's supposed to do or doesn't. Let's all keep our fingers crossed that it is going to do what it's supposed to do. And lots of kind of cool things that I'm excited to show you guys that I was kind of thinking outside the box on, and it definitely worked out. So yeah, anyways, have a great weekend. Happy Easter to everybody out there. Make sure you share it with lots of your loved ones and family. Give everyone a big squeeze. Yeah, and we'll see you guys next week on Bennett's Customs. Thanks, guys.